Are we live?
We are.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody to tonight's episode of the Paranormal Lens. I'm joined by Chad and Jamie as usual.
How's it going?
And tonight we're going to be talking about the Conjuring House. Tonight's going to be the Conjuring House, or the House on Round Top Hill, or the parent experience that they had, the parent family and their experience that they had there. It's going to be quite it's quite the interesting story, quite the intense story, and it's a story that most people know about due to Warner Brothers and James Wan's version of the story called The Conjuring. We've all probably seen The Conjuring, and I mean, if you're here, you've probably seen The Conjuring, and the fruits of that tree, the branches of that tree, that became the Conjuring universe, with the movie The Nun and Annabelle and the other Conjuring movies, all from the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So we're not going to spend a great deal of time on the actual physical history of the house like we do other places, because the house is almost 275 years old. The house, the land that the house was built on was deeded in 1680. It was a large parcel of land from Roger Williams to the Richardsons. It became like these parcels of land were divvied up because two other states were encroaching on Rhode Island. Massachusetts and Connecticut were encroaching on Rhode Island, and they had to kind of draw borders. And the parcel of land, which was 1,000+ acres, was parceled up and given to different families, and the Richardsons were the first family to have that particular parcel of land. And the house as it stands was completed in 1736. So you're looking at almost 300 years of history as it pertains to the house. So a lot of history there, a lot of, this family gave it to that family, this family member gave it to that family member, which is all available in the public record, and is really almost like reading the book of Job in the Bible, where it's so-and-so begot so-and-so. So we're going to kind of move past that, and we're going to jump right into the parents and their experiences there, because that's the most well-known, as it were. It was 1970 when Carolyn Perron, it's a French name, when Carolyn Perron actually saw the house and used the last $500 from their bank account, from the family bank account, other than like food and bread and eggs, to put the good faith payment down on the purchase of the house. And the father, Roger, he was away on a business trip. Now, you're going to hear a lot of this is going to be the difference between real life and the movie. The movie, he was portrayed as a truck driver and not home a lot. Reality was he was actually had a jewelry business and had clients from Ohio all the way through the New England states. So he spent a lot of time on the road. So Carolyn bought the house, or put the good faith payment down on the house, and she, like, when Roger got home, he was upset. Like, he wanted to know how to get the check back, and she was just adamant there was something that drew her to this house. And some of the eerie coincidences started prior to. If you haven't guessed, reading Andrea Perron's books, House of Darkness, House of Light, I think there's 3 volumes of it, and if you can tell, my cat is not really happy about something. And listening to just countless hours over the last 2 weeks of interviews with Andrea, because she is the most forward-facing of the Perron family as it pertains to the media. Carolyn is actually kind of a recluse now. She doesn't do any kind of media. And there was actually, a couple of years ago, a live stream from the house that she was a part of, where it was borderline embarrassing to the way that the people were acting. From some of the interviews that I've listened to, you had people that were acting like they were possessed and acting like they were wanting to confront the spirits and so on. And she, after that, she just determined there was going to be no more press, no more public stuff. And she lives, I believe, in Florida with Andrea these days. However, about 2.5, when I was talking about the coincidences prior to them moving into the house, the dad, Roger, brought home a dog. It was an exotic dog. I don't remember exactly what kind of dog it was, but Carolyn was like, "This is an exotic dog and deserves an exotic name." And the name that they chose for the dog out of the blue, without having, this is years before the experiences began at the house, before they even saw the house or moved into the house, but they named that dog Bathsheba, of all things. And Bathsheba met an untimely end, a very tragic end, because the dog had gotten out into traffic, and Andrea actually made the mistake of calling out to it, and it always listened to her, and then it had gone across the road and made its way back into traffic and was killed on the road. So that's very tragic, but really eerie coincidence, considering the name Bathsheba and the role that played in later on. Now, do we have the picture up with the family on it? So you have Carolyn, which is the mom, and looks very much different than Lily Taylor, who portrayed her in the movie. Carolyn was, by all accounts, just a strikingly beautiful woman, and not that Lily Taylor's not, but to look at the picture of Carolyn, you can tell, how strikingly beautiful she was. And then you have Roger, which was he's the dad, who actually shares my sister's birthday on the 27th of August. And then there were 5 daughters. So Roger was the only male figure in the house. Then you have the 5 daughters, starting with Andrea, the oldest. Then you have Nancy and Christine, then Cindy, and then finally the youngest, April. Everyone in the family, as far as I could tell, is still alive, with the exception of April. April passed in 2017. So, as was depicted in the movie, the family's move-in wasn't exactly. The family's experiences began when you listen to Andrea immediately as on move-in day. So on move-in day, they actually ran into Mr. Kenyon, who was the previous owner of the house, and he wasn't ready to move out. He was being moved out, not by the parents, but his son was either moving him in with him or moving him into assisted living. And he was as ill-prepared to leave as possible. As the parents were unpacking their moving vans, he was finishing packing his stuff up and putting it on the moving van, and they were moving it to the new place for him. So the day that they moved in, as was depicted in the movie, they're running into the house. And if you've been to the house, if you've seen the house, Jamie and I were actually at the house in November. And as you go in the front door, you make a hard right, you go through the area with the hearth and would have been the dining room at the time, and then into the kitchen. So the girls were coming in, bringing boxes in, and Andrea came through the living area first and came into the kitchen, and Mr. Kenyon was there pulling the last of his stuff out of one of the cabinets and wrapping it up, but there was a strange man standing behind him. And Andrea came in and asked, Carolyn, who's the man with Mr. Kenyon? And because they had met Mr. Kenyon in the past. And Carolyn was insistent, there is no man with Mr. Kenyon. He's the only one out there. Finally, 3 of the other sisters came in asking who the strange man with Mr. Kenyon was. And then the 4th sister came in and said, "Hey, that strange guy with Mr. Kenyon? Yeah, as I was walking through, he just disappeared." So, and that was, almost minute 1 as they went into the house. Further, they had a second dog, another discrepancy from the movie, they had a second dog that was with them, but the dogs, the animals wanted nothing to do with this house. They had to be pulled into the house, cajoled into the house, and their other dog, I don't remember his name, but he only lasted 2 weeks. He died, like they depict in the movie. So Mr. Kenyon didn't want to leave, but on one of the days, on one of the visits with Roger Perrin, Mr. Kenyon did take him to the side, and he issued kind of what would become kind of an ominous warning to him, where he said, if you love your family, for the love of God, don't ever turn the lights out in this house. And Mr. Perrin didn't know what to make of it, and he thought it was some type of warning about the neighbors in the neighborhood, or something to that effect. Little did he know that later on, as they talked to people who lived on Round Top Road and who lived around there, they could not recall a time when every light in that house wasn't burning through the night. So he literally lived with those lights on, and I guess learned how to live with what was going on in the house. And he, kind of gave the parents the warning and, a little helpful advice. And then he made his way out, and it was time for them to, to have their time in the house. And according to Andrea, the way that the movie depicts it is intense but incorrect. The way that they experienced it, from reading the books and from listening to them, and from reading the books and listening to the interviews, the way that they experienced it was super intense and wouldn't have been able to be filmed. Like Warner Brothers and Dimension Films, I think it's Dimension Films, came out and said, we're not going to film a movie where the people are going to leave scared before the movie's end. So they kind of doled some stuff down, and was a little bit more theatrical about a lot of some of the other elements. For example, they learned very quickly that it was kind of dangerous to play hide and seek in the house, but the hide and clap game was something specifically designed for the movie. It was purely theatrical. Obviously the Annabelle doll, the vignette about the Annabelle doll and the Warrens. The Annabelle doll looks nothing like what James Wan depicted it as. The Annabelle doll is actually just a large Raggedy Ann. If you've ever seen it, or if you've been in the room with the same room with it, I have on a couple of occasions. So on the second or third night, it continued. Actually, Cindy, the fourth daughter, so the second youngest daughter, crawled in the bed. She was hearing voices in her room, and she was one, she was one that was able to hear the spirits. April, one of the other daughters, so she would have been the youngest. April was one that actually could interact with the spirits. And on the second or third night, Cindy crawled into bed hearing voices, and the thing that she kept hearing over and over and over again was the very famous, there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall. So I think, Jamie, we mentioned that when we were there during one of our sessions. I think when we were in the library. So they moved in January of '71. They moved out in 1980. Andrea suspects that the trigger was for the actual kind of big events to be when the house was changed. So they had a hard time, much like my house that I live in now, with horsehair insulation and heating out of a fireplace. It was very hard to keep it warm. And the way she describes it is it was kind of preternaturally cold. And so there's very much a difference between like that supernatural cold and a regular chill in the room. And one day, Carolyn decided with April there to bust open. There was the main fireplace in the kitchen had been closed up for 100 years. And she decided to open it. She took a crowbar to it and decided to open it back up. And that's when they suspect that, a lot of this stuff really kicked off. Carolyn and April took a crowbar to it, and when the other girls got home from school, they helped clean it out. Now, a lot of the times, again, Mr. Perrin was on the road, so and his belief initially in what was going on wasn't really there. You know, he was a guy that believed in what you can see and touch, and he laments the fact now that he didn't believe his family, but I mean, who could blame him at the time? So one of the big initiating events after the chimney was opened up, or the fireplace was opened up, was the warm room story. So if you go to the Conjuring House, you'll see how it's laid out. In the bathroom, there's a center, like a central fireplace and chimney system, and around it is kind of a warm room. Obviously, the radiant heat from the fire would keep that place warm. So it was kind of a closet on the first floor outside of the bathroom, and that's where they would get dressed after getting out of the bath or getting out of the shower. So Carolyn was in the shower, and one of their neighbors came to visit. And the neighbor, I can remember this because it's told the same in every interview. The neighbor had a cake, and the kids were told to entertain the neighbor while Carolyn was finishing up in the shower, and they were waiting to get a hold of this cake, dig into this cake, and they heard a commotion coming from the warm room. So with the neighbor and the four girls, they opened up the door, and they saw Carolyn being assaulted by a thick hanger, like a thick clothes hanger. She was just being beaten with this clothes hanger with nobody around. It was just the clothes hanger, having at her. And the neighbor ended up hightailing it out of there. She would never come back, wouldn't let her kids come back, and wouldn't speak of the story for many years afterward. And I say that to move into the point where Carolyn actually took the brunt of the spirit's wrath, much like is depicted in the movies. She aged very quickly. This really strikingly, and I can't stress, like I've seen pictures of her, like the word striking is not an understatement when it comes to her. But she aged very quickly. She started using Old English words. She was being oppressed really, really badly by the spirits. And so at that point, you start looking into the history of the house and what had gone on there. And that's when you run into Mrs. Arnold. And Mrs. Arnold was one of the previous owners. She was 93 years old, and she hung herself in the bar. And Andrea believes that she is actually the culprit for what ailed them in that house. Not Bathsheba. Bathsheba was who Lorraine decided that was the antagonist at that point, and that was her name was Bathsheba Sherman. So we have mentioned two spirits now. We have Mrs. Arnold and Bathsheba. Now Mrs. Arnold would also, from what I can tell, also become known as the crooked neck lady. And in my pictures from the house, there's actually a drawing in the basement from the well room that we were in that depicted somebody with a tilted neck, and obviously drawn by a child. Bathsheba Sherman, she actually never lived in that house or on that property. She lived close by, but she never lived on that house or in that property. And she was accused of witchcraft. Was she really a witch? I would say not, because she's buried in consecrated ground in a local cemetery. And if she was found to be guilty of witchcraft, there would have been no way they would have buried her in consecrated ground. But that's not to say her spirit isn't there, nor is that to say that her spirit is pleasant to interact with in the place. So moving forward, hitting some of the other highlights, especially big one was the Warrens showing up. They had 5 total visits. They didn't basically move in like the movie depicts. They were in and out, and with the culmination of their visits being a seance and not an exorcism as is shown in the movie. Now the seance went sideways, just like the exorcism is shown to go sideways in the movie. They brought a cinematographer, they brought a sound guy, they brought a medium, they brought basically a crew with them to do this, and I think 3 or 4 of the girls were present for this as well. Whatever spirit was antagonizing them made itself known. They feel that it wanted to make itself known to the Warrens, and Carolyn was levitated off the ground and thrown from one room to the other, and her head struck the floor quite hard. So they were worried about her. Andrea says they thought that they had witnessed her die at that point. And this is where the rift between the Warrens and the Perrons started. And that was because as Roger ran to help his wife, Ed got between them. And Warren got between them and told him not to touch her. And that's when Roger punched Ed in the mouth and threw everybody out. Didn't want anything else to do, threw everybody out. And that, for a long time, was the last time they interacted with them. They interacted with them one more time at the house. And that was basically when they had called later on just to see if they were still alive, is how she describes it. So they endured a lot over 10 years. And then it came time to leave. The marriage broke down. It came time to leave. And actually, there was one of the girls, I believe it was April. I'm not certain which one of the girls was, but one of the girls didn't want to leave. She was so attached to the house, she didn't want to leave. And so she contacted the new owners of the house and asked if she could stay on as caretaker while they were refurbishing the house and renovating the house. And Andrea tells a story about the day that they left the house. And she looked back thinking that it was over, that this whole thing was over. And she describes seeing an apparition in one of the windows that looked effectively, I believe, I've listened to so many interviews. I hope I'm not jumbling the stories up, but I believe that she described this apparition as an older version of her. And when they got to their new house, and she looked in the windows, her mom saw the same apparition, and she's like, "This isn't over. This will never be over." And that's kind of where, like, the very sensationalized, the very well-known stuff kind of falls off. And Carolyn becomes a recluse, and like I said, the marriage broke down, and the kids went their separate ways. And eventually April passed on. And it's funny in so much that I personally have been to the Amityville house, and I've met owners of the Amityville house after the Lutzes, and many of them have said that they've had no kind of experience, versus this house, the Conjuring House, where every owner afterward, there's been a little bit of conflict as to, people wanting, whether or not they wanted to come clean about it, or, they wanted to get kind of shoo away the casual fans, or how people will do, they'll sneak over your wall in the middle of the night to come and get a look. But eventually, it fell into the hands of the people that embraced what goes on there, and it's morphed into what we have today. And then this is where I can bring Jamie in. And in November, myself, it was my first time. Jamie, was it your first time?
Yep, it was.
Okay. But we also attended with our Jott-Nyx New Jersey team. At the time, it was the whole team of Tim and Erica. And, it was not their first time. And
Great.
when we got there, we heard the stories. We heard the very familiar stories as we were given the tour. And it was kind of shocking to me. Number one, again, a lot of times, a lot of people only have the movie as reference. So there was no finding of the basement. Like the basement is very prominent. If you had indoor running water, you had to have a basement. So there wasn't going into a closet and moving a board and finding an entrance to the basement. But we got there, and I was kind of shocked at the film portrays the house as this big, really spacious place, and it's not that it's small. It's just it's very like the basement was a long corridor with many rooms off of it, and it had front and back stairs, and we set up in the first session was down in the well room where we had a piece of equipment that I can't remember the name of. Do you remember the name of it, Jamie?
I wish I could too. It's projecting words, but not like an obelisk, in a scanning frequency, kind of a cross between an obelisk and a spirit box. It was putting words together for what
right.
It was picking up. It was very fast.
But so that was our first session, and then I asked the rest of the other three to go upstairs, and I stayed down in the basement with the K2 and in the dark, and recorded a great deal of stuff down there. There wasn't a whole lot going on in the K2. Got a little flashlight action, got a little K2 action, but it was as you all were in the library, and again the house is so compact. I could hear the conversation from the library, and I was actually a part of it. I was answering, you guys in the library as I could hear you. Then we had the fantastic session in the library. I came upstairs and we set up the tripwire, and we were getting pointed answers. We were getting directed answers from all means of questions being asked. So we did that for an hour or so, and then we took a break, and then we went up to the upstairs. And again, we had the tripwire set up, and we were getting just a ton of activity in the middle bedroom. Pardon me. And the one thing that I recall from the place that we discussed, and then Erica echoed the sentiment, was the fact that it wasn't scary. Like, we didn't get the scary feeling. We didn't get the Conjuring House, like, this is a place of dread. This is a place where you're going to be terrified. It was more of a warm, kind of a welcoming feeling. And, it felt like we were there, and we were kind of communicating with, folks who wanted to be communicated with. And it surprised me during the hours of interviews that I listened to over the last week and a half that Andrea Perrone, our parents, said the same thing, that when she goes back, it feels like she's it's just a weird way to describe it, but she feels like she's being bathed in butter, and it's just this warm, homey feeling. And I completely agreed with that. The other thing that I agreed with is that she had said in her interviews is that you kind of bring your experience with you. If you're looking for that confrontational, scary vibe, that's, you can completely draw that out. If you're looking for a communicative vibe, you can draw that out. And like, people will go there and get kind of the experience they're looking for. But I also feel like when we were there, everybody felt tired. Like, it was like the spirits were kind of, imagine just being those spirits where you have different people in there every night asking you to prove your existence and asking you to do this and do that. And, I could imagine if it's an intelligent haunting, that you would get tired. something that I can completely sympathize with right now.
Dave, when you guys went in there,
And it was almost like,
when you guys went in there, were you tired? Like, were you projecting the tired thing? Or was that, or is that where you're just picking up from the house?
that's what I was picking up from the house. I wasn't tired. I had actually, we all stayed in the area that night, I believe, right? Jamie, you stayed up there as well.
Yeah, we just come from
And
dinner.
yeah, so I stayed in
together,
Connecticut.
yeah.
Yeah, so like Tim and Erica stayed close by, and then you stayed close by, and I stayed in Connecticut. I was visiting some friends in Connecticut, and so we were all fresh for the investigation, but it just felt tired. Like it just felt. I'll be honest. When we were there, it just felt like they were kind of worn out. Like they were just sick of being, for lack of a better term, kind of treated like trained monkeys. You know, dance for us every night. Prove your existence. And I mean, I can see how that would happen. You have people running in every night, asking them, asking them to do this, asking them to do that. So, that's just my take on the matter. I enjoyed the place. I thought the place was fantastic. I would go again. We got a lot of good evidence that we have tons of rolls of it that we still have to go through. And I highly recommend if you're looking for the experience. And they actually just opened up a new experience up there. I don't know if anybody else has seen it, and I don't even want to try to pronounce it. Gamping, where you can camp on the property now. They offer camping sites if you want to stay there. So they also offer daytime tours and other guided tours, and they have a team that provides those as well. They have an on-site staff. I believe the owner was down in the other house, correct, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's true.
So
The other thing,
that's
Dave,
it. That's my report on the Conjuring.
One thing to add to that, and I agree with you that there was a calmness while we were there, and I think that was the kind of the warm welcoming, and nothing flew off the shelves or no, get outs or anything like that. But there was, once we settled and sat for a while, especially the library and upstairs, we moved around a little bit, obviously, to figure out the lay of the land. But once we settled and decided to spend time in a space and just be genuine in the connectivity we were trying to make, it stuff started to happen. And that's the difference of, and I'm gonna get smacked for this more along the way, I guess, but that's the difference between being a paranormal investigator and a ghost hunter. We weren't trying to push for something to happen and then look for the thrill of it. We were trying to make an engagement. And it's a significant difference when you're in the field. You just let things happen organically by being willing to spend the time at a space, and I think that's really what helped open up the connection we had that night, especially in the library. It was just quite genuine. And the other side of that too is, yes, there are staff there on site and everything, but there's also a gazillion cameras all over that property, so they do not encourage you just to show up.
Yes.
If you're going to go, book it in advance, and there's a waiting list. We waited quite a while to get there, and that's why we actually had a November date, I think, too, because that was first available from the beginning of last year to get there. So, but it's worth waiting. It's worth the investment of time and energy to get there. I think it's really a cool spot, and I agree with you. I'd love to go back. Look forward to the opportunity to do that.
So, Chad, you get to play the audience surrogate. Like I did with the Clifton.
Yeah, I mean, it seems really interesting. It seems like there's a huge history there, and I did look a little bit and saw that they do have the gamping. I guess it's sort of, from the looks of it, it's a little bit of glamping, a little bit of ghost hunting, a little bit of camping. So I find that that's sort of interesting. The only problem with that is there's 7 or 8 sites, and whoever's in the site has access to the whole property except for the house. So there's times where you could be, just interfering with other people. So that's a little interesting. But you say
right?
the
And it's a
experience.
huge. I don't know if they've. I don't know if they've parceled it off anymore. But like I remember in one of the interviews, like Andrea had said that they had 60 acres. I believe they had 60 acres, or was it 200 acres? But I mean, just the part that you mowed was just within the wall, but they had just a vast amount of land beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah. And adding to that too, in one of the old iterations of the property's size, there were cemeteries that are now not part of the parcel anymore, from some of the original families that had, as the parcel got smaller and smaller, got absorbed into other properties that were sold off. So there's definitely some of that happening with original ancestry out there as well, but they're just not accessible from the current property line. So don't go drifting. Is what they suggest. Don't walk around on other people's property. It's they'll cite you for trespassing. Again, people just show up there. They don't want people out wandering the woods. And I will tell you this, guys, and we left, obviously very late in the morning, early morning, late night, whatever it was. And as I pulled out of the driveway and turned left, I got no more than 50 yards up the road, and the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life came walking out of the woods, just walked right in front of my car, looked at me for half a second and kept going. So there is definitely wildlife out there. It's rural enough that you have to deal with that kind of stuff too. So the point is, don't trespass ever. It's bad. Makes it all look bad too. Others in the field who are playing by the rules, if you will.
So you said that this is
everything that you look at when it comes to that house says to make, because of all, and it features all the cameras, and it tells you, it makes no mistake. It says only invited guests, only people with reservations, and trespassers will be prosecuted.
So you definitely said that this is a place that setting intentions is a key, because you're going to get what you put into it. Is that, if you're looking for that scare, you're going to get that scare.
Yeah, I feel it from the experience. Yeah, I feel if you want to go there and be confrontational, that it's a bad place to go and be confrontational. But it seems to be a place where people can potentially go and embarrass themselves, for lack of a better term. Because you'll have people that go, and I would love to dig into more of this live stream that Andrea had mentioned, where there were guests there that were acting a fool, and just to see exactly how it gets, because that's the bad part of paranormal investigation and such, and that's the people that want to over dramatize and act up.
Okay. So yeah, it's definitely a place that I would love to go visit. Hopefully we can get the team together to go out there. I don't know about the camping part of it, but I definitely like to do the house and investigate the house and some of the other things inside there.
Yeah, it's the northwest corner of Rhode Island, so there's not a lot out there, as far as amenities. So it's either drive in from Connecticut or drive down from Mass, or somewhere closer to I-95, heading over to the east. But it's reasonable enough that once you find a place, you can land there relatively easily, and get in and out of the property pretty well. So it's easy enough, and it's out in the country, so that's part of the reason why. Although there are neighbors next door, left and right, and across the street, that are right there. So it's like a lot of places where you expect it to be in the middle of nowhere, but it's really not so much so, because of sprawl and stuff. But and the parceling of the property over the years, there's definitely residential around it. It's really neat. And you're there before you know it too. It's just boom, driving down the road and there we are.
It kind of creeps up on you. You come around that turn and bam, there it is.
Seems like that's how a lot of these places are anymore.
Well, there's Erica. Erica,
Yeah. Hey, Erica.
yeah, there's Erica. Erica's saying hello. Erica was one of the Jott-Nyx New Jersey team members that was there with us that night. Very, very comfortable in the library on the chase. Now, the way that the way that it's set up now is the Carolyn and Rogers bedroom was turned into a library. A psychiatrist had the house after, and he made that his, or they, I don't know if it was a male or female, they made that their session room. So you have obviously you have the wingback chairs, and then you have the chase on the other end of the room, and it's a very comfortable, it's like a super comfortable room.
Yeah, it is.
And as right outside of it is like the dining area, like the living room dining area, and that's where the blood board is, the spirit board and the blood board. If you were so inclined, I think we had that in the room when we were doing our session, but we didn't use it.
We brought it in as a trigger object. You want to explain what a blood board is, just in case someone doesn't know?
Well, Chad, do you know what a blood board is?
No, I'll say I don't.
Well, depending upon your definition, it's a spirit board that's infused with, it's supposed to be the blood of the person that made it, but whether or not that holds true is here nor there. But yeah, it's supposed to be a very powerful, especially being a spirit board, supposed to be very powerful objects. And do you remember the other thing that stuck out, Jamie, from the house, where we kept looking around?
Is that the front entry room?
Well, the front entry room, but I was talking about the money and the offerings and the candy.
Yeah, I was going to ask talk about that.
That was everywhere.
Every place you can, and the library is a great spot for it because there's lots of places to tuck in and little nooks and crannies. But literally every room had somewhere where there was some small amount of cash tucked in, candy, little nuggets of like mini bars of candy and sweets were tucked in places. There might be a Jott-Nyx Paranormal card somewhere that I left behind. I don't know, fell out of my wallet. But there is that for the spirits of the house, as a thank you or a treat to hopefully encourage their participation, but also to say thanks for being there. I want the moment to slip by, but we were talking about the chase in the library, and Erica fessed up before we could burn her for it, but she did fall asleep. So it's that's a good sign. It's a comfortable spot.
Well, I wasn't going to dime her out, but that she dimed herself out.
Well, I was gone. But still, way to own it. Way to own it. But yeah, you're right, Dave. There's a lot. But
we had
that's through the house, and that adds to your comment earlier about the trained monkey kind of show. It's even actors who are in productions get a night off. Like this is a 7-day-a-week operation. There's always an event or an opportunity for folks to come through the house on a schedule, and to always have to be on. I was thinking about that from the perspective of us using Brewie's Brewery as our home base. We're there every other week, every other weekend, and that break in between, there's inactivity there then. So it's not someone always calling out to, hey, are you here? Show me something if you are, like this, the concept of it. There's just that pause and space, which may be why our engagement is better, at times than if we were going to be there every day. I don't know. I would get tired of it too, and I'd go the other way.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to.
Well, I mean, I just personalize it again, much like you.
Yeah.
I would get sick of being asked to, perform on a daily basis.
I was going back to the Booby's Brewery thing. I feel like some of the the things that are there normally, some of the people that are there normally haven't been there the last couple times we've been there. I don't know if you guys have sensed that or not, but I haven't picked up a lot on Aloise lately. So I feel like he may be taking a vacation or a hiatus, but um, you know, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Right.
Did you see
Well,
Tim?
Well, there was one last thing I wanted to
Right, Tim.
there was one last thing I wanted to touch on when it came to the house, and it's something that Andrea has mentioned in numerous interviews and in her books, is that she feels that the house is a portal. There are stories that she recounts where like her mom was. It was after she was starting to be oppressed, and she came downstairs and she was hungry, and she asked her to heat up some stew, and it's the days before microwaves, so it took her 15-20 minutes to heat it up, and she was coming back in, and her mom was standing there with like the biggest ear-to-ear smile. And what her mom had described seeing was like a family looking at this. She was looking at the hearth, and that there was a woman that was stirring stew in the hearth, and there were two gentlemen sitting at the table and kids running around. And one of the gentlemen poked the other gentleman and pointed at Carolyn. And she felt that it was like a portal to the past and a portal to the future. Like the past was looking into the future, and she had a window into the past, and you were able to interact. I found that to be incredibly interesting when it comes to everything that's kind of gone on there. And whether or not you believe in portals and vortexes and such. So with that, we'll do a wrap up. I'm obviously very, very much a fan, very big believer. I get the kind of welcoming, warm, comforting feel from it. Not that I wouldn't, if I were to act like I acted at St. Albans, catch the other side of it, catch the wrong side of it. But I'm a big believer that it's a very powerful spot. It's a very, obviously a very famous spot for a reason, and it's endured. It's endured now for, this happened in 1970. So, I mean, you're talking 53 years. So there's, the word endures applies here. Like this hasn't stopped. This hasn't slacked off, and it continues. So big thumbs up for me. If you get an opportunity to go to the house on Round Top Hill, please, by all means, check it out.
Yeah, give us a call. Let us know where you're going. We'll come along.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that and set up an investigation there. With that, I guess we will transition into what we have upcoming for our investigations. We have a couple public investigations coming up at Booby's Brewery, June 10th, 24th, and the 8th. We're on our every 2 week. We're going to be back on our every 2 week schedule coming up here soon. We have plenty of tickets for the 10th available. And then after those three investigations, we're going to be doing some team investigations. We're going to Crescent Sanatorium. It's not on here, but the end of July, we're also going to be going to White Hill Mansion. So I'm pretty excited about that. I know, Jamie, you were telling me about that before, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's good to be back. Good to be back.
So for our public investigation, tickets are available at that link. You can go into Booby's Brewery's website. You can go into the Jott-Nyx Paranormal Facebook page. You can find it anywhere there for tickets. Something new we're going to start pushing, talking about. Red Hill Museum Village. We're doing a paranormal investigation and event with Daryl Marstrom and Ron and Lords. I'm not sure who that team is, but I know there's somebody we're going to be working with on that. There's going to be a meet and greet, photo ops, campfire investigation. It is Saturday, September 2nd, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it'll be a fun evening into the night with a great investigation We'll be leading teams. It'll be Jott-Nyx and Jott-Nyx New Jersey working together. So it'll be a fun time. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see what else. We've got Ghostly Truths. We're working on that. We talked the other day. Melissa is getting that out to an editor to get that wrapped up and get it published. We would definitely want to share that with everybody. They did a great job on the storyline. So looking forward to getting that out. And as usual, here's how you can follow Jott-Nyx Paranormal on social media. We have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. From there, you can find our email addresses. Definitely, send us an email. Tell us what we can do, what you're interested in hearing. We're looking for ideas all the time. That being said, Jamie, I know we had a little bit of a change up for your plans. Have you figured anything out for next week, or is that still up in the air?
It's a bit of a mystery still, so I'm going to lose some intrigue to it. But I like to think we're going to have a guest, perhaps one way or the other. And then if not, we'll pull a topic together. And worst case, very, very worst case, we're going to discuss the Bell Witch down in Kentucky.
Okay.
And the story behind the family there.
Okay.
So
that's third or fourth
stream. Yeah. Intriguing story that goes back 150 years. So we'll see how it goes. The worst case, that's the backstop. But I'd like to think we're going to have a guest, one way or the other.
Very good. Well, guys, do you have anything else for tonight, or should we wrap it up and play the outro?
I'm good. Thanks, guys.
I think it's time for the outro. I'm all talked out.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching, whether it was live with us or the recording. And we will see you next Tuesday at 9:30. All right. Thank you.